I'm sure that almost everyone who opened this video has a bit of an idea about what a light shadow is, at least in terms of knowing what light, shadow, reflection, glare mean, perhaps even aware of these 3 simple rules for non-glossy objects. These basics are enough to copy from a photo or from nature. But what about drawing from imagination? Not just any sphere, but at least something like this with lighting that you've come up with. Then, of course, you need to know a bit more. And in this video, I'll talk to you about a method that absolutely every artist who can draw somewhat from imagination uses. It's called tracing, or as it's fashionable to say now, retracing, if you understand what I mean. I'll show you the essence of this technique, explaining it on a tablet, and I'll also draw a bit with a pencil. By the way, I'm often asked where it's better to learn drawing, on paper or on a tablet. And in reality, there's no difference. Choose what suits you best, although mastering the basics of drawing on a tablet might be slightly more convenient, so don't be afraid of it. Well, let's get started. So, here I have this little object, let's say it's a carpet, and we need to make it look 3-dimensional with shadows. And since I've mentioned drawing from imagination, the first thing to do is to imagine where the light will be. Experienced folks usually keep all of this in their heads, but for beginners, I suggest creating a reminder. Newbies usually do it this way. Not the best approach because it's unclear where the light is coming from. Above, behind, from the side, for instance. So it's easiest to show the light with arrows. One direction shows, the other, the angle of incidence. These are the 2 main parameters. That's it. Nothing more is needed. Let me make the light coming from above for the explanation. It'll be simpler, and it can be shown with just 1 arrow. Importantly, if you're drawing on paper, don't make the arrows too bold. Don't press hard with the pencil. Draw in a way that allows you to easily erase it all. I've also made this diagram for you, a side view. In real drawing, it's not necessary, but it helps to understand now. Okay, we have the light. Next, we need to break down the carpet into planes. Approximately like this. This is necessary for us to understand how the rays of light fall on the surface. I'll draw how it looks from the side. Oh yes, I have a ready, nicer version here. This represents some sort of big light source. It's somewhere far away, and often, light sources aren't actually placed in the frame. A ray goes to each plane from it, and that's the tracing. And you probably have a question right now. Why all these intricacies? What's the point? Look, the most important thing here is these angles. When the angle is direct, the surface is maximally illuminated. If the angle is less than 90 degrees, it means less light reaches there. And the smaller the angle, the less light. That's all. Now, knowing this rule, we can roughly understand how each plane is illuminated. I'll now show you how. Based on all this, you can create a light shadow using hatching. You should start with the darkest areas. Specifically, here it will be these 2 planes because they have the sharpest angle to the light. The first layer of hatching can be done along. Next, we have these 2 planes. Light falls on them less sharply, so I make the strokes a bit more transparent, or simply apply less pressure if it's a pencil. Okay, now we need to intensify the shadow part and smooth out the transitions between the planes, so you need to apply new layers at the junctions and at a slight angle. In these areas, the strokes are made more transparent to create a stretch. Well, that's it essentially. This is how you create light shadow using hatching. Of course, this is a schematic version. In real drawing on paper, the hatching is denser. Making a breakdown into planes should be very faint. Artists often skip it altogether because they understand surfaces well and can visualize these additional constructions in their minds. Also, in actual work, you usually need more layers. Specifically, how many depends on what you want. A strict academic stroke, or some smooth photorealistic tone. If you're not drawing graphically but are a painter, prefer working more with paints, or do digital painting, the principle remains the same. You need to break down the object into planes. These are our little rocks. By the way, for this, you need this little thing if you're drawing a head outline. Then, set the light and understand at what angle or angles it falls on the planes. After that, you can mix colors, but I'll quickly take them with a pipette now, picking the right shades and roughly applying color and tone in spots like this. It turns out something like a rough draft. It gradually gets polished later, refined, and ultimately results in this kind of beauty. Okay, I've shown you how to build shadows, but besides cast shadows, there's another important thing: the shadows that are cast or falling. Beginners often just wing it with these things, but in reality, they can be drawn very accurately, reliably, and this, again, can be said to be tracing. I'll show you how it works now, but first, a small clarification. All these things that I'm showing you with constructions, rays, and all that, they're necessary when you draw from here, from your mind or imagination, call it what you want. Those who copy can skip all this, because in copying, what's crucial is just seeing proportions and replicating spots. That's why my favorite method in copying is drawing from spots, using a technique based on spots. But now I'll show you the real grown-up methods. Let's understand the cast shadows. Actually, drawing cast shadows by tracing is quite energy-consuming. From this diagram, I think you can see its genuine geometry, some sort of outline. It's one thing to draw the shadow from a simple sphere, and quite another from something complex. That's why experienced artists simplify things a lot. But let me at least show you some key points now. It's easiest to understand the falling shadow from an example like this with a side view. We have a light source, some stick, and a surface. We need to trace a ray from the light through the top of the stick. And now, we have some length of shadow. That's already halfway there. Now, see how to do this in a normal volumetric perspective. Remember, yes, the light source has an angle of incidence, and we can immediately draw it like this, as in the first diagram. And there's a direction as well. It should pass through the base, where these two lines will converge, or rather, two conditional lines will end the shadow. Importantly, the direction goes precisely here, at the base of the object. As you can see, it's all straightforward. Knowing this principle allows you to roughly estimate the shadow of any object, and that's what all experienced artists do. However, if you lack visual exposure, there might be issues making the width right. That's why I'm showing how to do it. So I have a little cube here, essentially 4 sticks connected by planes. So through them, you need to trace the rays just like before. However, there are a couple of nuances here. For example, the direction of light also goes towards the center of the cube's base, not towards each individual stick. If we project perpendicularly down from the light source, that is, a stick down at a 90-degree angle to the direction, we get this point. We'll need it now. Look, I'm dropping the guideline through the top, say, of this stick, essentially the same as last time. And through the bottom of the stick, the guideline goes from this point. The lines intersected. We've got one edge of the shadow. And now, the same needs to be done through all the other sticks. That's it. We have 4 points, and we just need to connect them correctly. The shadow borders are ready. Now, this diagram for you might not be as scary, incomprehensible, or intimidating. These two figures are built on the same, basically simpler principle, maybe even easier. And the most wonderful thing is that almost all objects can be simplified to these primitives: spheres, cubes, cylinders. In general, you need to try, and someone might need to re-watch this video once or twice to digest this information in their mind. Definitely make these detailed sketches. Don't be lazy about cast shadows, about your own shadows. And if you've already gained some experience, feel everything with your hand. Then you'll be able to simplify like professional artists do, but the main thing is not to rush to do that. I also have an idea to do a similar lesson on light shadow, but in color. There are many interesting tricks there too. Well, if this video gets a lot of likes and requests down there in the comments, I'll release a continuation. That's all. Wishing you luck, creative success, and hoping to see you in the next video. Bye.